Hello and welcome to another broadcast of Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Tony Sweet, and joining me in studio is Captain Ron. Breaking the cycle. Free yourself from sex addiction, porn, obsession, and shame. That is the title of our guest book, George Collins. We're going to be talking with him about what is sexual addiction, porn, obsession, and how can people get over the shame. George Collins is the founder and director of Compulsion Solution. He earned his master's degree in counseling psychology from the John F. Kennedy University and is a professional member of the Society of Advancement of Sexual Health. He is an expert on sexual compulsive behavior and participates in forums on pornography and sexual compulsions. And today we're going to talk about those issues, those topics that usually don't get told at the dinner table. So today we're going to have a great discussion with George Collins, Director of Compulsion Solutions. So please welcome to Truth Be Told, George Collins. All right, George. It's your time now. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
You know, I'm doing pretty good, and Captain Ron, he's looking pretty good over there.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
But you know, this topic is one of those topics that a lot of people, they get embarrassed about. They don't want to admit that they watch porn, or they don't want to admit, But then there's some people that they'll tell.
Listen, in my circle, it's the opposite.
Oh, is it the opposite?
Right.
Okay. So I brought you on because I found your book and the title especially fascinating. So can you give us a little more background of you and how you got, I guess, more interested in helping others with this addictions?
Yes, I certainly can. Well, I was raised in a home where there was a lot of abuse. My mother sexually abused me, and my father physically abused me. And we grew up in an middle upper class, 25-room home with servants. And
wow!
So on the outside, it looked fantastic. On the inside, it was a disaster. I found my father's porn, and I got over involved with my mother as a kid, and it was distasteful to me, but I couldn't do much about it. So porn was a go-to thing, a coping mechanism that I used because it was easy access because of my father's porn, and that was just Playboys in those days because I'm older, and as I got older and assumed a fairly normal-looking life, got married and couldn't figure out why I wasn't really interested in sex with a real live woman, and got divorced from that woman probably because of that, but because of my neurosis surrounding that, my fear, my pain, my shame, my self-doubt, my judgment, my criticisms of myself, and then married another woman, and of course that lasted a number of years, but it was still the same story. Couldn't really be involved and intimate because I had no concept of what intimacy was. Into me, you see. I didn't know that. I didn't know what it was like to really be with somebody because I didn't have any role modeling from my parents. So that ended, and I spent a number of years trying to figure out why I always had a bunch of porn and why that was really the only way that I could feel comfortable with my sexuality. Until finally, I moved to California and decided that if I wasn't, and I went through therapy, but I was getting what I call babysitters, which meant traditional talk therapy, which just couldn't seem to break down the barriers, didn't get to the point. Many of my potential clients that call me, we work with men all over the world using Skype and phone, but many men who call me say that they do therapy with talk therapy, and the addict is in there thumbing the nose at the therapist because the addict is stronger than talk therapy. So I really understood at some point that if I didn't help myself, that I wasn't going to get well, and that it was going to be me who was going to fix myself. So that's when I really started to write the book, only I didn't know it was a book at the time. It was just notes, and it was scribbles on table napkin, paper napkins and papers. I started to go to college. I decided I wanted to get a master's degree in psychology. At least I could figure out my neurosis. At least I could figure out something. So I enrolled in college, and at the time I didn't even have an undergraduate degree. So finished that and got the master's degree, and didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I suddenly realized that, just as you guys do, that this is an unseemly and an unsightly and untalked about issue that men have. And I mean, you can go to the corner bar and people be flashing handhelds with women's breasts showing, and that's the decor. That's what people are doing. But I decided to start my own business, and what I do is a whole lot different than traditional therapy. It really has to do with teaching clients to be their own therapist. And the way I do that is in chapter 2 of my book, and that's called dialogue therapy, where I get people to actually talk to themselves, to write a new script for themselves, so to speak. I tell them that the script that they have is sort of like a soap opera. I ask them if they watch soap operas, and they usually say, of course not, because I ask them why, and they say they're silly and redundant. And then I say, well, I got bad news for you. Your life is a soap opera. It does whenever it feels like it, and messes up the script. So I said, what we're going to do is to write a new script, and so you're going to email me, unless I'm seeing them in person, you're going to email me a script every day or every week or whenever I can get them to do it, where you're talking to your addict, or you're talking to fear, or you're talking to shame, or you're talking to anger, and you're going to act as if that subpersonality within you can talk. Because it's an immature aspect of you, and that really is the only way that you're going to get well, as far as I know. Because you don't have a delete button on your neck. We don't have reset buttons on our necks. The next best thing that I've found is to do this dialogue work.
Well, let me
go ahead.
No, I want to ask you, and we'll get back to what you're saying, but something that kind of fascinates me is I've being here in California and growing up in a addiction family, because my dad was an alcoholic, and my mom more medical, like pills. She always took pills to. So, being a sex addict yourself, do you still struggle with that, or have you? I mean, do you still get the?
I had no idea of being a therapist when I came up with the idea of dialogue, and then a wonderful thing happened to me besides that, because my therapy is two-pronged. One is the cognitive behavioral, and that's the dialogue therapy, and the other is spiritual. The spiritual part, I was kind of forced by a bunch of people who kept telling me, you got to read this guy, a guy named Eckhart Tolle. To read the Practicing or the Power of Now, which, the premise is that you're not your mind. And so I elaborated on that in my practice, and I talked to people about the fact that what we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell instantly turns into thoughts, feelings, and action. That's how we function. That's how you set up this interview. That's how I set up the machine so that I could be on the interview. That's how I function all day long. Now, the only problem with this is that everything happens real fast. And the addiction happens fast, too. So how many times have you said, I'm going to just eat one piece of chocolate or one piece of pizza pie?
Every day.
and guess what? Your mind is faster. You have to be faster than your mind. You have to be faster than your addict. And so the only way that I know of that's worked for me, and I'm remarried to a wonderful woman who runs the back end of my business, a former Buddhist nun, and she's written a book that you may or may not know of called The Couple's Guide to Sexual Addiction, which helps the couple. And that's the guy. My book is the best-selling book on Amazon in its genre, and hers is the 5th or 6th best-selling book. So we've been doing very well in helping people, and both, the clients that come to me read both books, And their homework every week is tell me what's in chapter 1 as you know it, and tell me how it could help you. And if I'm convinced that they know what chapter 1 is in my book and also in Eckhart Tolle's book, then we go to chapter 2. It's pretty simple.
Well, that's fascinating that you can, putting your own experiences on paper into a book form and now being able to help others. That's right. Pretty amazing. Especially when that wasn't even your intention at the beginning.
My intention was to save my poor life because right. A number of years before, I took 200 Xanax and went to sleep.
Oh, jeez. I'm surprised you woke up.
Well, I was just lucky. Somebody found me and
right.
took my lifeless butt to the hospital or got an ambulance to take me to the hospital, and here I am. So I wasn't meant to be gone. I was meant to do this, apparently, because it's flown pretty, I can't say it's easy, but there was as soon as I woke up in the hospital, I knew that I had some sort of weird special purpose.
Wow.
And through the years, it showed itself to me.
Let me ask you this, Doc. There's been a thing in the news lately. In fact, 2 days ago on CNN, I showed you that article on CNN. Just 2 days ago, there's a debate going on right now, it seems, that whether or not sex addiction really is an addiction or not an addiction. Do you want to weigh in on that from your...
Happy to, and anybody that's watching can read. I just put a blog into our website, compulsionsolutions.com, regarding that, because I think I read probably the same article. We get 25 or 30 calls a day in our small end of the business.
That's a lot.
And if you heard the stories of people, I mean, the fact is that I get guys that are cross-addicted, which means alcohol, drugs, food, and sex. The easier ones to quit are alcohol and drugs, and you can't quit food, but alcohol and drugs are easy compared to sex. So I don't know why people are saying this. I always wonder if the people that are talking like this, I just wonder what's on their browser.
Right.
Because for sure it's an addiction. I can absolutely guarantee you by my own life, by my own crazy world, by 2 wonderful women that I had, that divorced me not because of my addiction, but because of my character, because of what it did to me.
Well, the addiction, as they say, by definition, addiction overtakes your life and ruins things, and by definition, that's...
I under-earned and underachieved my whole life up until 20 or so years ago when I finished my master's and opened my practice, and by wonderful luck and circumstance, met my wife-to-be and married her, and met a fellow that really knew how to write and could take my notes. And I drove down to L.A. with this big pile of box of notes and books, and we made it into this book. Andrew, a wonderful, an excellent writer, and helped me do that and put it out to the world. And so far, we sold thousands and thousands and thousands of copies, and it's also on audio too, so that's good.
So can we determine, through your practice and even your own experience, I mean, there's going to be people out there going, I watch porn. I'm not an addict. I mean, so when does it become, where's the line?
When it gets in the way of your relationship, of intimacy in your relationship, when it gets in the way of your job, when it gets in the way of your friendships, when it gets in the way of your hobbies. If you notice yourself, and it's really hard to, because you're going to have resistance, and you're going to have sabotage, and you're going to have, you're not going to want to believe yourself, because sex is even more addictive than alcohol and drugs, because it's the only drug that you can take where you have an orgasm.
Yeah, true.
And nobody ever had a better orgasm that I know of. So,
I'm sure a lot more people are drinking. Yeah, if that was true.
The only thing with drinking ever got me was a headache the next day. And, and drugs made me feel logy.
Right.
But having an orgasm was always kind of fun.
Well, I have a friend that I knew back in the Midwest that he was a bathhouse. I mean,
Right.
junkie. I mean, he said actually he would tell me he would always try to get. I'm like, I'm not going to go to a bath. I don't want to go. But he said that it made him feel. It was like his meditation. He said just being in the environment made me feel like I was at home, and I never understood what he meant by that. When somebody says that to you, why do you think that environment made him feel more comfortable?
2 words: conditioned response.
What does that mean? I mean,
He conditioned himself to respond in a way where he felt. I mean, you're talking about bathhouse, gay bathhouse.
right? He was, yeah.
Okay, so he felt loved and appreciated, even though he probably wasn't really, because the people in the bathhouses, as far as I know, are objectifying and sexualizing others
Right.
and using each other for sex, not for relationship, not for intimacy, not for love,
Right.
not for absolute connection. But if you get used to it, we get what we think we deserve. You ever heard that?
Oh yes.
We always get what we think we deserve. And if we're conditioned to believe that we deserve to be objectified and to objectify others and to live that kind of a life, then that's what we're going to do. And I can understand him. I felt when I would get a brand new Playboy magazine years and years and years ago, before the internet,
Right.
even before DVDs, I was in heaven when they delivered that Playboy magazine for a day or two. And I remember looking at the centerfold and saying, "My God, I'll never have to look at another magazine again."
And
A week later, it's no good.
Until the next
Old
one
news,
comes out.
Can't wait till the next one's delivered.
Right. Well, and I think that's another thing is I think people now they're starting to they watch porn
Mm-hmm.
and they start reenacting porn in their bedrooms, which I find that very fascinating because
They don't look.
they they really
Right.
they start the terminology, the script,
Right.
everything. How does one when they come to you and then they say, this is what I'm doing, and you find out they're doing the script of a porn, how do you start breaking that cycle down? Let's say that Ron, I'm going to use
For
you
example.
for example, that he came to you and says, I want a more intimate relationship with my girlfriend or wife or whatever, and I want to break this cycle. How do you start helping him become more intimate in a natural way and not a porn script way?
Well, really, the important thing that I think has to be done is that Ron would have to understand what intimacy is, and so I'd actually have him look it up, and we would discuss it in a session. We'd discuss what intimacy actually is, and not just objectification and sports sex. Sports sex is a whole lot different than intimacy. To be connected and to be real, you see, because I have to break the news to guys that no woman that of any merit or value in her own mind really wants someone to have an orgasm in their face. No, they just don't. It's not fun to them.
Right.
It's not exciting. It's kind of seedy and crummy. And so when people start reenacting that kind of stuff, it's just silly, and it's objectification and sexualization, and it's taking advantage of people, and it's just so we have a talk. I'll actually do a couple session with the partner to find out how she or he fits in to the situation, and what their thoughts on intimacy is.
Let me ask you this, Doc. Tying into this, has this grown? Has sex addiction grown recently? Because
Internet.
you were just saying earlier, right? With you have to wait a month for a magazine, and then even getting access to that.
Now you have instant.
Where now everybody's got it in their pocket.
Right.
They're walking around with it. So I would think if I was an addict, the fact that it's so easy, I'm going to have my phone with me 24. It's like an alcoholic that carries around a 12-pack with them.
Everything. I mean,
Like crack cocaine.
Yeah.
Right, and you always have it. But crack cocaine, you got to try to go get it. What if you always had it with you?
You can't get enough of what won't satisfy. That's an addict. That's what addicts do. They can't get enough of what will never satisfy them because there's not enough boobs, There's not enough rear ends. There's not enough of anything, because you can look it up again. I had a guy call me about 3 months ago from the Midwest, and he said, this is so-and-so, and I've called you 2 or 3 times, and I never made an appointment. And I said, well, what makes you think you're going to make an appointment today? And he said, well, he said, I swear to God, I'm going to make an appointment with you, because I just caught myself online trying to, looking at a video of a woman trying to put a lobster up her rear end.
Oh, my God.
I said, that's too much information even for me.
Right. Yeah.
Tony, why don't you go ahead and pull that up for us?
Yeah,
and,
let me see if I can find that. No, that's wow. And that's what I was going to ask too, is with sexual addiction, just like alcohol, one drink and then a year later we're up to 4 drinks. Is sexual addiction, what's the percentage of people that want more and more and get more into like kinky, like fetishes where it's beyond our beliefs?
Well, if you notice, if you go to a website, I know neither of you guys have ever done that.
Never.
If you were to do that.
I'm a church going.
If you were to do that, you can look in the right-hand column and down at the bottom, and the porn people are really trying to entice you to go deeper and deeper into darker stuff, and younger stuff and fetishy stuff, and try and move you into the place where you're going to be spending money instead of getting the free stuff. So that's just the way it is. We've actually tried to make innovations towards the porn people and tried to talk to them about putting, how the warning signs are on cigarettes. We've been trying to get them to do that, but we talked to one guy and he said, I wouldn't do that because I'd have to sell one of my Rolls Royces.
Wow.
Didn't seem that funny to me when he said that.
No, not at all. And so is there a difference between a sexual addict and like Jared, the Subway Jared,
right,
of child porn? Is there I know it's a lot more harsher when it comes to the legal terms, but is it the same thing on the board?
I'm not tracking.
I mean, it's like if you're just watching, man or woman man adults, and then watching child porn, does that put you in a different category besides the legal terms? Meaning,
or is the addiction the same?
Is the addiction the same?
They have terminology for it called pedophilia.
Right, but is the addiction the same?
The addiction is the same. It's just that you go deeper into the shame spiral, and then that spins out into more fear, more shame, more pain, more self-doubt, more judgment, more criticism, more anger. And the more of that stuff you have, the harder your life is, and the crappier your job gets to be, and the more terrible your relationship gets to be. And you stop having your friends around because you don't even think you're valuable enough to be with them.
Wow.
It's a terrible spiral. The people I talk to are, it's a disaster.
Right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have some more questions for George Collins. He is the director of Compulsion Solutions. You can go to compulsionsolutions.com. If you have a sexual addiction that you're starting to be aware of, or think you might, maybe watching this show that I might have an issue or a problem, you can always contact George. But we're going to come back and we have some more stuff to talk to him about. So this is Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet.
Captain Ron.
And we'll be right back right after this message. Don't go anywhere. From anxiety, from depression, maybe even chronic pain. Well, listen up. Truth Be Told is going to tell you about a breakthrough program built on over 100 years of therapies used in America's returning veterans to help you successfully overcome PTSD, anxiety attacks, pain, and depression. The secret proven in study after study. Music therapy. The effects of music are nothing short of amazing. From strokes to PTSD, music has been shown to improve the quality of life. Now, one of the latest music therapy programs being used in America's veteran hospitals can be yours to experience for free at home and to help your own anxiety attacks, pain, and depression. Or just relax after a hard day. It's called Whole Tones. It takes music therapy to a new level. This revolutionary program makes use of specifically designed frequencies that have been shown to stimulate your body's natural healing power down to a cellular level. If it works for battle-scarred vets, can it work for you? Well, experience it for yourself for free at sweetwholetones.com. Like Tony Sweet, that's SWEET. Go to sweetwholetones.com. Now enjoy the show. Do you suffer?
United States Pharmacopoeia, USP, sets the standard for most food supplements and are used in over 95% of all vitamin and mineral supplements in the world. The problem is that these products have never appeared in any living tissue. They're created in laboratories and are not recognizable to the body's metabolism. Grown by Nature products are different because they use renatured ingredients, proprietary blends of essential vitamins and minerals with cofactors of proteins, lipids, and complex carbohydrates. Over 50 studies have been conducted on renatured nutrients, and over 20 have been published in peer-reviewed journals proclaiming their superiority. As a result, Grown by Nature vitamins and supplements are now recognized as simply the best available. Call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829 and order your Grown by Nature products today. We are what we eat, and since we are of nature, we should eat foods in their natural form. Only Grown by Nature offers a full line of renatured nutrients. Call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829 because not all products are grown by nature, but they should be.
All right, we're back. This is Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. Whoops. Tony,
nice.
Tony and
me
Captain Ron.
me and Dean Ryan here. The two of us are doing a show today.
Sorry, it's a creature of habit.
With Dr. Collins, though.
Yeah, Dr. Collins, we have him on the Skype. As you can see, we're talking about his book, Breaking the Cycle, Free Yourself from Sex Addiction, Porn Obsession, and Shame. So I want to ask you, if when somebody comes to you and say they have a problem, what does it take to finally open up to your partner if you have one? Because that, like Captain Ron said while we're on break, is that must be a really tough conversation to have.
Most of the people that call have been caught, so that's already out. The men that are smarter call, and they have the problem that you're talking about.
Right.
So the way I try and talk to men about it, depending upon how deep they've gone, is to tell them to let their wife or their partner know that they're going through. I'll use different terminologies. If a guy's 45, I'll say to talk to your wife about midlife crisis. And to get a hold of our couples guide, which is a nice book. My book is not nice; it's rough.
Right.
That's why it's a bestseller, because it's rough. I mean, it's the way people talk on the street.
Right.
Have you guys read? Either one of you read any part of it?
No, I have, and I just some parts. I haven't read the whole thing, but I
All right.
definitely it goes. It's straight to the point. I mean, you're it's not always what you want to hear.
Right. Right. No, but it's regular. It's like we're standing at a bar talking to each other,
right.
and that's the way people talk, and that's why it's not a cute little book of psychobabble. No, this is real straight talk. So my wife reminded me during the break that the word progressive, and I think that would be good for your audience to know. It's a progressive disorder. What you don't think you're going to do one week, you end up doing the next month.
Right.
So somebody would say, well, gee, I'd never look at cheerleader site because that would make me want to look at underage porn. But, it's just the way the human mind works. You want more. More, bigger, better,
Right.
More of a thrill. It's the same with drugs and alcohol. You do more.
Yeah.
So
you can't get enough of what will never satisfy you.
So let's say that you say more of a sexual addiction is when it affects your hobbies and relationships, but those people out there that are watching today that they feel like they may be on the borderline of it. Is there something that they can start doing besides they go, I don't want to call a therapist, I don't want to go and talk to
Or you mean
George.
like a functioning alcoholic? That they do this, but they still function their life. So they
Right.
define they don't know if they want to.
They don't want if they want to come
in.
and they don't have a partner to have to open up to, but they feel like how can they start the process
right now? Smartest thing for them to do right now would be to go to their computer, open it up, punch in compulsionsolutions.com,
Mm-hmm.
and go down past my picture, and you'll see a picture of a book called Breaking the Cycle. Click on where it says Get Started Free, and then within 30 seconds, they'll have a copy of the intro and the first chapter of the book. Oh, they don't even have to call me. They just put in their email address, and that'll be sent to them within 30 seconds. Instant gratification.
Right.
If they want to, then they can download a copy of that onto their computer. They can go to Amazon.com or Barnes and Noble, and they can get a hold of the hard copy, or they can download it, or they can get the audio on their computer, so no one has to know you're a sex addict. But the smartest thing to do is to suck it up, and I give everybody 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour on the phone for free. Everybody that calls. And if I'm not available, one of my colleagues. We've got a bunch of people that work for me now, and they've all been through the same. Nobody will ever answer the phone that hasn't gone through sex addiction themselves. So anybody that wants to call is going to be talking to somebody that, like I tell them on the phone, anything you've thought of or done, I've thought of or done.
Right.
Get it off your chest.
And like you said earlier, that you came from a upper class family. I know I used to love gospel Christian music, and Kirk Franklin, he is one of the top gospel artists out there, and he came out and even admitted. So he must have got caught, because he came out and publicly announced that he was a sex.
That's typically when they come out and say that.
Sex addict. So can you talk to our audience about, it's not a class thing. It's not somebody that's just poor. It's everybody. It affects everybody. And if you could just kind of reassure them that that's okay. I mean, it's okay to understand it.
If your audience and you knew who I had talked to just this week, you'd have to be wearing Depends.
I already do. But
these are wonderful people, and they're from every class. There are people from the simplest class to people that are professional athletes and politicians, and a lot of clergymen.
Wow, sure.
Clergymen are very susceptible to this.
And it's not always from it's not always from sexual abuse, though, because most people think he's an addict, so he must have got molested.
This happened for me, and it clicked in for me simply because I was abused by a real live woman, my mother,
right.
and my father had the porn, so it was a perfect fit. I mean, a perfect negative fit. But the fact is that no one is teaching intimacy to young people. And parents don't know. There's no class in intimacy. There's no class in sex. There's no class in how to get along and how to be with a woman and or a man, how to be a partner. There's no class in that.
Right.
And we have to depend on our role modeling from our primary caregivers. And if that doesn't go real well, which it doesn't in a whole lot of ways, and people don't have the talk, if nobody knows what you're talking about, then guess who you listen to? The next door neighbor, who says he did something, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. And we all heard those crazy stories as kids. And we probably told them. We lied and exaggerated.
Oh, no, I agree. And, I was like you. I grew up, I was in my in 80s, I was in my teens. So, I remember finding the dad's Playboy and all that stuff. But it wasn't really hidden. I mean, it was pretty much just laying out. So my dad definitely.
What does that tell you? What does that tell you?
Oh, yeah.
It means that it's okay.
Yeah.
And not only okay, but my dad does this.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and my friends and I remember, oh my God, you got to play one. We just gather around and just, oh my God, look at that. I mean, it was just kind of like every one of their dads had Playboy or Penthouse or whatever it was. So, and I agree that intimacy is not taught because, my dad's 81, my mom's 77. Most of our parents back in the day, it wasn't about really even loving each other half the time or intimacy. So when I think you said you had 2 marriages before this. How did you learn, and what was the process of learning to have an intimate relationship, not a sexual relationship, but an intimate relationship with your current wife?
Oh, I met my wife. Through a spiritual teacher who just blew my mind because she was the catalyst for reading Eckhart Tolle and really understanding that I'm not my mind, I'm not my feelings. I'm
Right.
not, I am conscious awareness. And so during this time when I was involved in really trying to understand this, because it was a great help to my addiction for me to be able to understand that I wasn't my mind, that I could observe my mind. I could actually observe my mind, and I could catch it before it started to do ridiculous, objectifying, sexualizing, weird stuff. And so during that time, I met my wife, Paul who was involved with the organization where my spiritual teacher practiced. And we just, for whatever reason, we just knew we were supposed to be together. We had very little in common as far as, hobbies and things like that, because I'm a rasty guy from Walnut Creek, and she was a former Buddhist nun. But we just can't not be together. We're here to guide and help and love each other. And more to your question, we just look at each other. We just connect. We just love each other. I put myself in the position to be intimate, and it was given to me.
Do you think for couples that maybe are trying to find the intimacy, and I mean, you may not even be experienced in this at all, but tantric sex or tantric yoga, is that something that people can work together and maybe build more of an intimacy?
Yeah, well, tantric sex is, they make a lot of money off it. There's books and videos, and there's other kind of things for it. But my wife taught me tantric sex, and what she taught me was that it's pretty simple. It's just two things. Orgasm isn't your primary motivation, although you'll probably always have one. And number two, you're blanking out on the second one.
That's okay.
But you want to be present in the room and no thought. So that's what I was trying to think of. No thought during sex. Now you try someday.
I was going to say that's hard. Yeah.
It's really hard to not think during sex, because that's all we ever did as kids. We thought. We thought about the centerfold of the magazine. We thought about the North Pole if we were having an orgasm too soon. We thought about the girl down at the drugstore if we wanted to get off faster, and we weren't with our partner. And so if you stop thinking during sex, which is part of the training that I do if a client wants it, if you stop thinking during sex and don't think about whether you're going to have an orgasm or not, you're going to have sex that's out there in orbit. And masturbation to pornography will be nothing compared to that.
Well,
that makes sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. And I have to say, this has been a very interesting conversation.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, the time is up. But I mean, if anybody out there that's dealing with something that they've maybe had an inkling, like, I'm having some issues. I've heard, I've masturbate 10 times a day, and I'm like, I did like once a week. It's like, shit.
That's an issue.
I was like, damn. So, but George Collins put together a book called "Breaking the Cycle: Free Yourself from Sex Addiction, Porn Obsession, and Shame." And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show that book. And also, his wife put a couple's guide to sexual addiction. I'll show that too. Get you guys both in there. But George, and this is the last question, but how many of the people do you feel that fall off the wagon? Every addiction, people fall off the wagon. And then they get frustrated because they did fall off the wagon. Is there a percentage of the people that struggle on a daily basis for years with this type of addiction?
Well, everyone is, everyone's going to have sex.
Right.
And everyone's going to eat food, but not everybody has to drink or do drugs.
Right.
So sex addiction, what I tell people is if you slip, don't slide.
Yeah.
If you slip, just use that for information, not ammunition. Because once you start using for ammunition, you back in the cycle of neurosis, of the fear, the shame, the pain, the self-doubt, the judgment, the criticism, and the anger. And there you go again, and you can spin back into your full-blown addiction again. But the fact is that there's no perfect. Every day I slip. I'll look at a woman when she's bending over for more than 3 seconds, because I have something called the 3-second rule. And, all kinds of little things happen. Maybe I really want to look at J-Lo on the red carpet, on the Yahoo News. And I've got no business. No business in the world looking at J-Lo. I mean, I don't even know J-Lo. What do I need to see her new invisible dress for? It's still, I catch myself all the time, every day. And so what I tell the people that are watching in, be easy on yourself, but also be firm. And if you need help, get it. It's simple. There's nobody, especially at Compulsion Solutions, there's nobody's a big deal here. We're regular people. We understand addiction. We certainly understand this one. And we're here to help you and guide you and care for you.
And it sounds like that you take patients from all over instead of just local. So
this morning I talked to somebody in Dubai and somebody in Kenya and somebody in Europe, but most everybody else is from Canada and the U.S.
Perfect. Well, we want to thank you, George Collins, compulsionsolutions.com, and thank your wife for us for sharing her experience and being a great wife to you. So, all right. Thank you, George, so much. And please come back. We're going to have you back sometime. And if you have any other books, do you have any other books coming out?
I'm going to probably put an addendum to this one because there's some new stuff that isn't in the book. But at some point, when I feel like it, we're busy, real busy every day. And my ministry, if you can call it that, is to help people. Perfect. So I try and answer the phone as much as I can, and we're here.
Well,
awesome.
We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. All right.
Thanks George. Appreciate it.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. It is time for us to say goodbye.
Now you're going to have a warning and tell them not to look up the lobster thing online.
Yes,
please do not look up. Do not Google that.
Too late.
Well, I know you've already pulled it up over there, but for everyone listening, don't Google that.
But I have to say, I did one time. A friend of mine, he thought it would be funny and sent me an email, and because we used to send little gag stuff. I opened it up, and it was this woman.
There we go.
Getting just rammed by a horse.
Oh. You can't unsee that now,
no.
Right? Yeah.
And I was like, I texted, I was like, Jesus Christ, don't ever do that again.
No.
That was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. Did you ever see that one, Two Girls in One Cup?
Stop it. That's on that bombshell. We're going to let everyone go because
Okay.
they're going to be Googling that one too.
I know. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back in a few weeks. Next week, we're not because of Christmas. And then we'll come back here in about 2 weeks. And then the Monday edition will be back here in a few weeks also. So,
that's right.
All right. We'll see you next time right here on Truth Be Told. I'm Tony.
Captain Ron.
We'll see you next time. Hey, thank you for listening to Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie right here on Universal Broadcasting Network. Make sure you go to our iTunes page. Just type in Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. Listen to us on iHeartRadio. Again, Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. And go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and please leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. So please support our sponsors and make sure you listen to us every Friday right here on Universal Broadcasting Network from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, have a good week.